We're back with Barry Weinman, co-founder of Allegis Capital.
Barry, what do you think is the outlook for Hawaii's tech industry from, here on?
Well, I think people have been struggling for a period of time trying to figure out how to grow the tech community, and I don't want to present myself as somebody who knows how to do that. I thought I knew how to do that. I think the university is a great linchpin. I think organizations like HiBEAM, which encouraged entrepreneurs to take risk and mentor them, was important. I think the area of capital formation is where Hawaii needs most of its development.
You hit your success in California. What brought you back to Hawaii and the interest in helping the University of Hawaii and the people here?
Well, I have a long-term love affair with Hawaii. I served in the Navy here in the early 60s on a destroyer in Pearl Harbor called the Pineapple Fleet. And I met my wife, who was a student at the University of Hawaii, over at Hamilton Library. I was out trolling and got a little lucky. And we got married here. We spent a couple of years living here in the 60s and then went away for a long period of time. And it was one Christmas about six or 7 years ago where one of our Christmas parties that we were supposed to go to got canceled, and we weren't sure what to do. So we just went to the airport, decided to get on the first plane going to someplace warm, and that happened to be to Oahu. We wound up here, and then we've been here since.
Was there any point in your career where it's kind of a tipping point or a period where you just hit a massive breakthrough, where things just really started to roll?
Well, I think obviously when you start a company, that's a tipping point one way or the other. With the success of our software company, it gave us the ability to begin investing in other entrepreneurs. And in 1980, we created a venture fund to do that. And in Silicon Valley at the time, there were a number of venture funds, but they were all relatively small. Our first fund was $19 million. Today, we invest $19 million in a single company.
Back then, that's quite a bit of money, though, right?
Well, there were no $100 million funds. Today, there are multi-billion-dollar funds, and the entire industry was only $200 million in size. Today, in 1999, the industry raised $100 billion. So you could see it was very small at the time. Everybody knew everybody. And
you were 10% of the industry then.
Well, when I say we raised $19 million, the money is taken down over a 4-year period of time. So you're really taking down about $5 million a year out of a $200 million a year fundraising effort. So we wouldn't want to call ourselves 10% of the industry.
But that market share still is pretty large, considering,
well,
right?
Relatively. A big fund at that time would be 40 or 50 million. So we were a mid-sized fund at 19 million. Today, if you have a $19 million fund, they don't even allow you in the book. And I think what happened is that we hit a couple of very early successes. And in the venture business, if you have a failure, you can lose 100% of your money. But if you have a win, you can win 100 times your money, and people forget about the failures. And so we had a few of those. We have a number of companies that we've taken public. Some of them you may be familiar with, where you might even use the product, like Palm. We were the original investor in Palm Computing. We were the original investor in 3Com, which is Ethernet, the first Ethernet company. So we have things where we pioneered new markets, kind of exciting. And that I would consider to be a tipping point.
You mentioned that after the success with the merger with Hewlett-Packard, that you were interested in helping other entrepreneurs, creating this fund. How did you learn the value of giving back to the community, working with the community, and being successful at the same time?
Well, I think it takes some time to learn that process. We were kind of lucky. The community helped us. We were early, and we were growing together, and everybody knew everybody. And it was a small community in Silicon Valley at that time. It's much bigger now, and I don't even know most of the people anymore. But it was a good feeling. So we've always, both my wife and I, have always felt that it's been a good life, and we ought to try to help some people maybe experience the same thing we had a chance to experience. So we've tried to do that in a number of ways.
And was that after the success, or during the process?
Well, during the process, you're so intensely wrapped up in the process itself. It's hard to think about it. For example, at the University of Hawaii Foundation, we have a thing called Private Equity Initiative, which I started about 2 years ago. And it tries to address the problem of young startups who are so wrapped up in what they're doing day to day that they don't think about the community. So what we did is we went around to a number of young companies, most of which don't have extra cash to donate. Most of their employees don't have money where they can donate themselves. And we asked them to give us some part of their equity. So, for example, Dustin Shindo at Hoku gave us 25,000 shares. Pat Sullivan at Hawana gave us 50,000 shares. Hawaii Biotech gave us 50,000 shares. There's a way where a young company who is wrapped up in day-to-day business can also participate in the community. And frankly, we may be able to turn that into scholarship money for students. We may be able to turn that into programs at the university, whereas the individuals couldn't have given the money. That was the lesson we learned. We didn't have cash to be able, or even time to donate when we were building our company, but we had equity.
Thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned for more on Greater Good Radio.